Hello, welcome to the third episode of the Down Trank Ecstasy Side, Downtown East Side podcast. A look at the downtown East Side through a frontline worker's eyes. This episode is decriminalization. I hate to tell you, I hate to say I told you so. I'm sorry that the video is so grainy. I don't know why. I'd like to start off by saying thank you guys very much for following along. I greatly appreciate the time you've taken out of your busy days to watch and subscribe and like. I very much appreciate it. Thank you. I mean it a lot. Thank you so much. Yeah, means a lot. And without further ado, this podcast goes way, way back. Opening statement. On January 31st, 2023, the province of British Columbia introduced a pilot program to decriminalize people who use drugs. It was intended to make it easier for people struggling with addiction to come forward for help. That's what the BC government internet page says. What the fuck? I mean, that doesn't even make any sense. Make it easier for people struggling with addiction to come forward for help. Where? Can you please stop tearing down tents? Supply them with meals? Actually give them homes? Like, get on it. But in the meantime, how about socks and blankets? My God, how infuriating. Right from the very beginning, when I started to hear this decriminalization, I believe it was back around the year 2020. It was at the time all police chiefs across Canada agreed we should decriminalize drugs. When here in BC, they started drawing up this pilot program. Key points. Very smelly, stinky points. They never decriminalized drugs. They decriminalized weight. My very first thought when I heard all this, how is this ever going to save a life? Way back in the day, about 7 years ago, my sister-in-law, she sent something to my mom from Facebook. It was an American mother. I think it was called In Lieu of Misty. She was talking about her daughter that had went through 3 rehabs already in the States. She talked about how brilliant her daughter was, and she was a smart mother. She talked about the DMS-5. She talked about how much it costs to put somebody through treatment in the United States. She talked about so many different things that awakened me. And formed an opinion of mine that was already really formed by so many different great people already here in BC, like Dr. Matei and counselors, great counselors that had spoken into my life previously already. You know, I mean, Becky's been around. I needed a lot of counseling apparently. But each one of these great people spoke into my life, and they had all overcome this addiction. And, you know, and the thing is, I never did seem to find a home in my beliefs about this decriminalization. You know, safe supply, the word addiction, drug dependent, so many different camps on, and very many opinions and really stern opinions on all of it. And I could never find a home or a voice in this community on my belief. And, you know, I didn't stay silent. I did write a paper that was published in the Megaphone way before this decriminalization came into whatever law, because it scared me. It literally scared me. My thought around it was, you know, they're going to implement it and the police are going to control it, and when it's over, they're going to say, see, we told you so, and now we're going to do it our way. And, yeah. So anyhow, I got busy. I was in detox at the time, and the creative writing group, the ladies from the Megaphone, inspired me to start writing, and I did. I don't know if I would have ever, at that time in my life, sat down and wrote what I did if it wasn't for those ladies. But I will read what I wrote, and I might have changed my opinion by then. I haven't, this will be the first time. We will read it together since I wrote it back around 2021. So I should have read through it. This will be the first time, so we'll read it together and we'll kind of have fun with it. And it's not the cure all. I mean, it's a talking point. I believe we do have to change addiction from a criminal problem to a medical problem. That's the obvious in all this, what I'm going to be reading. Police should not be treating mental illness. That's the obvious part. You know, that's why I personally call myself an addict. I mean, it's ghetto. I don't mind that at all. Becky's ghetto. But more than that, I'm not a drug-dependent person. I'm an addict. What I believe that does, it throws it right back to the doctors. It's their responsibility. By saying I'm an addict, it says I have a medical condition. Not unlike diabetes, not unlike COPD, not unlike cancer or any other thing. And I think I will explain that in there. So let's get busy. This is exciting. Okay, remember, when I first started this, I was a very angry young man. Now I'm a very happy young lady. But I started off very angry with this, so I didn't catch a lot of people's attention because it was hostile at first. So bear with me. Top points, bullets. The reality of being drug dependent. Part 1, the problem. Today in this country, the Canadian government will allow medically assisted death to end the suffering of depression, yet they still criminalize drug use and won't let a person self-medicate. I made a lot of choices that led to me being an addict, but I never chose to be an addict. Nobody chooses to have a disease. Addiction is not a disease. Or addiction is a disease. Well, we are not our disease. Health professionals recognize addiction as a disease. Psychiatrists agree, but then, in what I say is nothing short of malpractice, they hand it to the police to treat. I've heard it said, we need more police, tougher laws, and police officers willing to enforce the laws. Of course, I would disagree with that. We have had 40 years of a war waged against us, and now they are no closer to winning this war than 40 years ago. The war in Afghanistan ended after 20 years because they said it went on too long, and yet this one continues despite one side being fully funded and militarized, while the other side is unorganized and living in tents. So that goes to show how long this was written. Oh, here's another. This number is way off today. Of the 23,000 people who have died of drug overdose since this epidemic started, all 23 deaths were preventable. No one should have died. Win-win. By the police giving us what we want, all drugs decriminalized, they would win back the downtown east side. Okay, let me stop there. I forgot to mention, when I finally came up with this, what finally happened, oh my God, the police chiefs across Canada all agreed we should decriminalize. Sarah Whidden was my boss at the harm reduction window. She doesn't remember this at all. But she challenged me. She said to me, my former self, why don't you challenge the detectives and the beat cops when they come in here and ask them their opinion on decriminalization? So I took her up on that. And man, some of the answers that they gave me. One guy said to me, he said, you know what I would do? He said, I would take all you guys and I'd put you on an island or isolate you somewhere where you couldn't escape. And, don't be horrified because it's not bad. What I'd do is I'd train you all. I'd give you tickets. You'd be carpenters. You'd be, plumbers, truck drivers. and I said, after he finished, I said, you know what you'd have at the end of all that? I said you'd have drunk and high plumbers and truck drivers. You just oh yeah. Agree. Another guy, when I get into this, I told him not everybody's going to come back. Not this generation. Let's worry about the next generation, I said to him. But we're going to need peers there to help people that don't want to come back, that are still using and want to continue using, finishing off, whatever, that's how they're going to live their life, right? And we're going to need a community of support. That's how I was saying, right? And he could not understand that. He could not understand that. And I said to him, what do you think recovery is? I said to him, do you realize that a drug and alcohol counselor's job is like one of the most depressing jobs in the world? People that get 10 years sobriety have a 1% tattoo somewhere on their body. Very few people make it. And a drug and alcohol counselor has that job where, it's a very sad job, I told him. It's not. People go into recovery, it's not, I don't know. Anyhow. And another guy. All drugs, I said. All drugs? Yes, all drugs. Including heroin? Yes, including heroin. No deal. Every drug was okay except heroin, except the opioids. He was negotiable. Finally, I got my solution. When I was here at home, I live out in Strathcona, right down by the train bridge. It's down below. And this constable, I guess, or whatever, I was sitting outside and I looked like somebody, so he had to question me. So I took the opportunity to ask him afterwards. I said, what's your opinion on decriminalization? And this fella honestly answered me. He said, you know what? I hate it. He said, it takes away our very best tool for investigation. He says, when we pull somebody over, he says we're not looking for the little guy. He says, but we're looking for the next guy up. And sometimes they're carrying paraphernalia. And when they are, we're able to detain them. And blah, 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 blah. And I said, oh my God. Well, that's a good, honest answer, I said. Thank you very much for your time. And then as he drove away, I said to myself, oh my God. Pharmacists don't carry crack pipes. Bingo! It came to me. It was like, oh. That's it. Pharmacists don't carry crack pipes. Decriminalization. I'll continue. Okay. Oh, first of all, I want to show you my shirt that I made up. I hope it's not too blurry. The whiny bitch. Yeah. Anyhow, back to the show. um, okay. Yeah. So, why I mentioned that, um, even though they know now, I told them they'd win the whole downtown east side with decriminalization. Heroin? Yes, heroin. No deal. You guys are the laughing stock around the whole Canada. You can win the downtown east side. Heroin? No deal. Oh my God. Okay. My idea would complement recovery societies and be beneficial in stopping homelessness, i.e., being asked to leave treatment with nowhere else to go because a person who's used drugs broke rules. Most, if not all, recovery places are abstinence-based, zero tolerance for using drugs. This will make sense in the second part when I explained Ian's Utopia. Okay, Becky's Utopia now. Ian and Becky's. Love. Okay. Police arrests, criminal records, needles on the ground, tents on the sidewalks, out of control homelessness, and the list goes on. These consequences are what I call manifestations of untreated trauma. The World Health Organization, WHO, has 5 criteria to classify diseases. The one I remember is all diseases are hideous and progressive. None of this is our fault. The addict, drug-dependent person, I bet my last dollar when they imposed prohibition and waged war on us, they didn't consult an addiction expert or a person with lived experience before they did this. However, we, the drug-dependent person, and society, pay the price for this decision. At this point, I think it is important to mention other diseases and how addiction compares to them, i.e., Mr. Smith shows up to his appointment to get test results. The doctor says, "Mr. Smith, wow, we have your blood work. If you don't make serious changes in your health, in your life, and stay away from foods with high cholesterol, you will end up with a serious medical consequence." But Mr. Smith, after hearing his doctor's prognosis, doesn't heed the warning and continues making unhealthy decisions in regards to his health. And eventually, he has to get bypass surgery. Other diseases like COPD, diabetes, and even some cancers can become a problem in our lives due to our choices, kind of like addiction. So, the similarities amongst the diseases are there. However, there is one big difference amongst them. When you end up in the hospital with heart disease and other diseases as well, you have nurses that love on you, families that show up and comfort you. You probably get flowers and phone calls. Now, addiction, the big difference with addiction compared to other diseases, when you show up in the hospital due to the drugs you do, because of your drug dependency, you get nurses that might stigmatize you. Odds are there is no family in your life now. You won't get flowers, and I doubt if an addict will hear from well-wishers. Other notables. My God, I got to get through this. I got to work. Other notables. I get it. At a certain point, we become hard to house and we become unemployable. In the next section, I'll offer a solution. Read for details. In my opinion, what we are doing isn't fixing the problem, it's exacerbating it. When we say you can carry 2.5 grams, it was 3.5 grams, of illegal substance, is decriminalization, is not a proper use of the word. In this 40-year war, they decriminalize weight and the amount is all. Drugs are still illegal. When we build buildings and we have floors to house addicts and separate from people in market housing, apartments, making drug-dependent people use separate entrance is not helpful to anyone. To make it, to me, it reeks of segregation. Some of our behaviors and actions seem counterproductive in getting us where we need to be. However, how I reason this is this: hurt people. I always say that. It grounds me. I never blame the addict. People tell me change takes time. I call bullshit. I remember not too long ago, many years ago now, a young girl in the West End got meningitis. She was very sick, but thankfully survived. It took about a week before the laws for schools' vaccination policies were changed. Does 23,000 deaths, a lot more now, not equal one very sick girl? The solution in the next section might seem costly. I would argue not doing it is way more costly. The way I see it, if the contractors, government, and First Nations could come to an agreement on the land for the downtown east side, development alone could cover the cost of my utopia, not to mention the saving of medical expenses and the karma that would happen by doing the right thing for people. I believe we will one day treat addiction as a medical condition, and when we do, we will need to put people in situations to succeed. I believe we failed at this before. My example is the AIDS crisis. Part 2, my solution. Drug addicts, drug-dependent persons utopia. First thing that happens when we decrim is all addicts wake up the next morning no longer stigmatized, marginalized, dehumanized. How is this possible? Here's the idea. They, health professionals, start treating addiction as an illness, disease. What would this look like in my idea of decrim? A drug-dependent person would have to go to a doctor to get a prescription. A Dr. Mate or some doctor with an addiction background that both sides could trust to run the program. We would take the prescription to a 24-hour pharmacy that would be connected to a 24-hour injection site that could be discreetly put anywhere in the community, could be as many as needed throughout the community. This is what the first stage of my idea program would look like. How my idea would grow from there and must grow from there would ultimately be my utopia. What is my utopia vision? It is a community built for drug-dependent people. It would be peer ran and medically supervised. It is a community we would live in, little 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom houses, not apartments, not townhouses. There would be front yards with green grass and white picket fences. In these houses, there would be safety alarms for the people would use so they could stay safe. A peer in the community would do safety checks if need be. Also in this community, there would be a huge rec center, resource center. In this community, there would be things like gym for fitness and basketball courts in which there could be ball hockey and many other activities. There would also be boardrooms where Kwantlen College could come in and help upgrade people's education, and job schools for counselors to help people with employment and careers. It would be a place for people wanting to assimilate into society. It would also be people who didn't. Not everybody is going to want to come back. That's A-okay. A couple things I need to say so I stop getting ahead of myself. My utopia community is a model off of the Phoenix Treatment Center in Surrey, Mike and Ann Wilson creation. I guess, like that center, we would have counselors too. Having said all this, I think it's time to point out all the benefits of this idea from start to finish. Hopefully at this point, even in some order, early or first stage benefits. They treat addiction as a disease. Stigma is gone. Doctors now see us to give us our script. By removing the criminality of addiction, doctors would get to look at the physical as well as the mental health of drug-dependent people regularly. Nobody needs to get their drugs in a back alley no more. No more toxic supply. The police would now enforce drug laws. This would get safer neighborhoods, no more using outside, no needles on the ground. Here's the kicker. The police could actually, at this point of time, win back the downtown east side. They would no longer be cutting off our resources. This would then lead the government sitting down with First Nations to see if they could make a deal. All this could lead to mass development of the downtown east side and beyond. That's the benefit of the early stage. But what does it really mean? Well, we're to start treating addiction like a disease and not waging war on people in our community that are ill. Second stage of my idea, I would like to say as much as the professionals and finally be focused on their areas of expertise. Doctors treating drug-dependent people, addicts, getting to look at physical wounds, now being able to properly assess mental and emotional wounds, and being more equipped for interventions, and police would be able to do their job. Let's face it, if you're breaking the law, robbing, stealing, attacking after my version of decrim, then you're actually are a criminal, right? Or am I missing something? Non-profits would still be needed, and I believe counted on as well. But peers would be the real difference makers. Still ground zero. The peers would be the ones taking guidance from the professionals and bridging those gaps. Like NA says, the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is unparalleled. All this leads to the question, one I can hear already, won't this lead to more people using? I believe it wouldn't. I believe it would have the opposite effect. Nobody chooses to have a disease, but no, legal drug dealing would still happen. That's why the injection sites would still remain. However, I believe there would be like a distant third stage, and that would be people being able to purchase drugs in a controlled environment. The injection sites in the community would one day be businesses, kind of like opioid dens. Other things that would happen is the art and culture in the community would be like a renaissance, a modern day one. All this I say not because people are using drugs, but because we are finally maturing. Every action has reactions. Change drug laws, stop torturing good people or turning people into bad people, type of thing. I need to mention how this would help people heading into recovery. If people are using recovery, it's absent based. The second stage of my plan would be a safety net for people who are drug dependent and are in danger of being homeless. Part 3, the wrap up. Now, saying all this since the time I wrote this and since I have been talking to people about my idea, I have a lot of positive feedback. The big barrier to a plan like this is addiction has turned into a big business. Imagine if they ever came up with a cure for cancer. Think about the jobs that would be lost with a cure, the machines they make to treat cancer, the technicians who run the machines. You know what? That's just all negativity. I wrote all that stuff way back in the day talking about negativity stuff, blah, 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 blah. That's it. That's my plan. So I'm going to end it there. And yeah, that's it. So my next podcast is going to be very, very exciting and very special. It might take a little bit. It's going to be on sex work. I don't know, sex workers in the downtown east side, sex work. But it's something that's very personal to me. Something I feel I don't have I'm very I don't know what to say, right? Like, I'm very the ladies that I've met have changed my life. I found the women to I found beauty, I found warmth, I found community, I found acceptance, friendship, but yet I know underneath that there's been a lot of trauma that I haven't experienced. I've never been beaten. I've never been pimped. I've never been homeless when I had to, but I've been lonely. I've been crack addicted, selling my body. I've never been sex trafficked. And that all happens out there. And somehow I have to find a way to find the humor to put in there too with my friends that I share laughs with. And I want to do this right, and I want to honor So that's going to be my next podcast. So I don't know. That's coming up. So thank you for all watching, and again, a special thank you. Thank you.